to the Slaying Self-Doubt YouTube channel. Here is where we empower Black women to overcome their doubts, fears, and insecurities in order to walk into their God-given purpose. How do we do that, you ask? Well, we create safe and brave spaces just like this for Black women to show up authentically as themselves. So join me and sometimes some of my friends or our journey as we remind you that you are not alone. I am Coach Felicia, and together we will. Welcome back to another episode of Slaying Self Doubt Podcast. I am here with Errin Davis from the Davis System LLC. She is the COO. Hey, Errin, how are you?
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. So, guys, remember I had told you all that I had did this thing. I don't even know when it was. Was it last year? I think it was last year or early part of this year. Well, I posted something on Threads, and then I got so overwhelmed with all of the intake that my procrastination and my self doubt, all of that stuff, just it all flared up, and it was all things. So now we are getting back into these interviews. And so Errin was one of the people who her brand manager actually saw the posting and she connected us. And so I'm super excited about being able to have this conversation with you, Errin. And I'm glad that she got us connected. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started?
Well, firstly, I want to shout out my brand manager, Anissa Benjamin, ABMI Media. Thank you so much for connecting us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, really happy to be here. So my name is Errin Davis. I am the Chief Operating Officer and owner of one of the owners of the Davis System LLC. Um, I grew up in the Boston area to two immigrant parents, hailing from the island of Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay,
So
sure niece.
yes, yes, yes. So I very much grew up in like a immigrant Caribbean household, and like my American culture came from when I went to school during the day. Um,
Nice.
but for me, politics it will always played a part in my family because my dad was a carpenter. He had been in the carpenters union since he was 19 years old, and many people know, when you're a union member, they have you out there working, holding up picket signs. And since I was a child, I would be out picketing with my father at carpenter union sponsored like election events and things like that.
Wow.
And that is really where my work in politics began. I held my first community event at the age of 16. I hosted my community block party where we had voter registration. I had elected officials show up. Um, that was really like my first stint into politics, wanting to do something for my community, and that's
Mm.
always where it has followed for me. Senior year of high school, I was fortunate enough to get an internship working for then the city councilwoman Ayanna Pressley when she was the first Black woman to
Oh
represent the Boston City
yeah.
Council. Yeah, so I got to work for her in high school, and she really was my motivation. I saw a woman who looked like me, who was fighting for issues that I cared about, that
Mm-hmm.
impacted communities that I cared about. And not to be big headed of myself, but she knows this as well. I said to myself, well, she's from Chicago and she's doing all of this for Boston, and I'm from Boston. So if she could do it, I could definitely do it.
Yes,
And
and that
so
is not big headed. Okay, that's what happens when you see the example. It makes you believe that you can. So yeah, shout out to her for being that example for you.
exactly, like she continued to be that example for me. So I continued my relationship with her throughout the time I was in college, but throughout my college experience, had the opportunity to work for different women electeds, whether it be in their campaign or officially in their government office here in Massachusetts. And then when I was graduating college, I had the opportunity to do a post college internship working in Congress,
Oh,
working for the
okay.
caucus. Yeah, I worked for the Caucus on Black Women and Girls underneath Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman from New Jersey. She started this caucus, and during that time, I really got to dive deep into like Black women mortality rate,
Mm,
what it means to be like to be an example to young Black girls, and what
yeah.
as an older woman when they gatekeep. Those are a lot of the things that the research and things that I was doing and learning. Um, and at that time, the Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley was running for Congress, and I came back home, and she was offered me a job. She's like, "You want to work for me in Boston, or you want to work for
What?
me in DC? But either way, you need to come work for me." And I took the risk. It was a big risk because for me, I chose to only go to college 45 minutes away from home and that's if with traffic,
Right.
because I was too afraid. I was too afraid to go. In
Wow.
DC, for me moving to DC to work in Congress for her when I really knew no one here, and didn't have like the experience on like that federal level, was really like me taking a leap of faith on like this risk of like expanding my career.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, 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 very thankful that I did, because within a month of basically being in DC and working full time for her, she introduced me to my now husband, and she told me, "This is gonna be your husband." Okay,
Okay then.
he came congressionally approved right from her,
Right, right.
and
Yeah, say less, right?
yeah, and so we dated for a few years. Both worked in politics, so we both worked in her office together. My first big girl job, and I'm dating my coworker. But here we are.
Hey, hey,
um,
stranger things have happened, right?
right? Truly, truly. But ultimately, he ended up leaving that job, taking on roles, working for Elizabeth Warren's presidential race
Oh
campaign,
yeah,
and
uh-huh.
a couple other races in Massachusetts as well, including our current mayor. He was her organizing director. Um,
Nice.
and when he was finishing up with the mayor's race, he basically had a moment of like, I don't think that I can go back to like this campaign back and forth of like intense work and then
Mm-hmm.
unemployed while you wait
Mm-hmm.
for the next campaign to
Oh
start.
yeah,
And
I don't even think about that. Yeah.
yeah, like he was constantly in this unemployed, even though he was working a high job, it was constantly like the Warren campaign just ended and he was out of a job that day.
Right,
Like he had
yeah.
no notice, like, and those things just happen. And or he at the time was telling me like, I want to be married, I want to do all these things, but the job doesn't allow for the stability and
Mm-hmm.
consistency. Uh, and so instead of going on another campaign or going into government office, which is not something he was interested in, and he wouldn't have lasted in there anyway because it's not his forte, uh, he started the Davis system. And I was working at Boston Public Schools in the Office of Equity at the time. And he was like, I would come home from work and I would be starting to try to support him in this work because my degree is in business entrepreneurship, and so I was trying to help him get it off the ground.
Yeah.
And then it just got to the point where like this was just so hectic. This was too much going on, and he
Yeah.
really needed the support. So I quit my job and took the risk, and I came onto the Davis system full time and took 50% ownership of it.
Period.
um, and now we work on our business together, being able
Man.
to do this work, and we're married, we live together, we work together, we do it all together.
Oh, so this
Yeah.
gonna be a real, real juicy conversation. Okay. So first of all, I just going back a little bit about your story and with your dad being in the union. So my husband's in a union and I have worked in healthcare and we were in unions, but at the time that I was in it, it's not the same thing, right? Like unless you're
Nope.
like, I never actually saw any like real stuff, right? Like it just was kind of like, oh, you
Gotcha.
work for the hospital, you got to be in the union, bleh.
Union,
Right. By
pay
the
your
time,
dues.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
By the time I left, that was it. But once I met my husband, and I think, oh man, we've been together almost 17 years, and they probably had like
Beautiful.
two strikeouts or strikes or whatever have you, and to
Yes.
like
Mhm.
witness it, like, so you mean you about to go down there and you gonna stand and it is like the whole process of them like nobody can cross the picket. It is so intense. I
Yep.
was just like, so how long is this supposed to last? Because like you only getting this money for this, and it was just such a interesting stressful, interesting time, right? And to hear the conversations that were happening about people who crossed the line and like, oh, they were saying this. It's like, so I can't even imagining that as an adult. I can't imagine that as a child, like watching that. But that was your inspiration and just the things that you've been able to do from that. Sometimes we don't even recognize the the pathway that the Lord kind of has us on, right? Like, and how things start
Yep.
to end, where we end up. Sometimes it's just kind of like, oh, that's by happenstance we think that is, but really it's a part of the plan for your life, right? And so, even
Yep.
in this, in your story of how you got to where you are today, like you like two big leaps of faith, right? Like you said, I didn't want to move too far away from home, and so then I get offered a, once in a lifetime job and say, I'm going to move to DC from Boston, which is a completely different atmosphere, a completely
Yeah.
different space. And then not only
In a
DC,
good way.
right. But you went to DC with in the government. Okay. That we be, I'm in Prince George's County, so I'm right outside of DC, right? So we be trying to avoid that spot. You went
Wait, my
right
husband
in.
is from PG County.
Okay,
I'm a, I'm
PG.
I'm raising my future kids in PG County in
Let's
Bowie. I promise you.
go.
I pray to
Okay.
God he lets me raise my kids in
Okay,
Bowie.
PG count. Listen, y'all, this just got even better. Okay, yes, yes.
I'm like,
So,
I'm in Tacoma Park right now.
okay, come on now, girl. Yeah, so that right, that is to be in like the middle of the place where we mamas be like,
Yeah.
nah, that's just it'd be too much going on down there, right? So that was one leap of faith. To the next thing, to leave your job, right, and leave the career that you had built for you to go into business for yourself, not only for yourself but with your spouse. Like those are big, big things. So I want to know from both of those big steps, before we talk about self-doubt, like, no, I'm gonna ask the self-doubt part first, and then I'm gonna ask the other question. So how has self-doubt showed up in your journey, and like specifically to both of those things, like the both of those decisions that you had to make, all
Mm.
of it, like how has self-doubt showed up in your journey?
It showed up so much. I literally wrote a list of all the ways I feel like self-doubt. I'm like, I have the list over here, like which one I want to talk about. Right? Uh, but when it comes to like those two big ones, I think for me, when it came to moving to DC, it really was hard because she offered me two jobs. She
Mm,
was like, I want you to work for me. You can stay here in Boston if that's what you're more comfortable with, and pretty
yeah,
much offer me the same exact position, but in her DC office. And she was like,
right.
but I would prefer if you moved with me to DC because I think the experience you would get is different. Like she has always mentored. She is not just my congresswoman, she is my sister. And
Yeah,
she has always mentored me throughout that time too. And I think it really, the difference for me was picking a college and then picking my career post college
yeah,
was like I was too scared in high school. In high school, I knew that when I was deciding where I wanted to go for college, I knew I lived a very sheltered life. I knew I had
mm,
really ever made a decision on my own that I didn't like check with my parents or get approved by my parents or
yeah,
somehow wasn't funded by them
right.
in some way. Um, I didn't feel as though like at the time from high school to college, I didn't feel as though I checked within myself and I was like, you're not mature enough to go that far
Ooh,
away.
ooh.
You're actually not going to, you will probably not have a good time because you'll be too scared. I remember when I first moved to DC, I found a bakery on Georgia Avenue, Trinidadian bakery. And the first time I walked in there, I literally started to break down crying because I
Oh,
was like, it smells like home in here. And I was like, it had been so long. And I was like,
yeah,
the experience that I felt like when I moved to DC, it would have been heightened, tripled, quadrupled in college. I was not ready.
yeah,
I just was not.
yeah.
Um, and
Man, let me
so
pause
what
right
makes
there because that part right
yeah.
there, just to know that you're not mature enough, right? I think that we don't always recognize that, right? And being a mom of, I got 2 more years before my oldest son will go away to college, wherever he's going to go. I remember being in that space, and there's like usually it's people who want to get away, right? Like they just don't
Yep.
want to be in the space anymore, so they just like, I'm just gonna go as far away as I can, but also like having the self-awareness enough to know that like I don't know if I can handle it, right? And I think back to like I just wanted to go because my friends were going, right? In my mind, like in my
Mm-hmm.
whole, at 40 something years old now, I can say I don't think I was ready for college, right? I went because my family was saying, oh, you need to go. This is the next step. This is the thing that you need to do. But for me, I think I knew in my gut, like, girl, no, you could have
Yep.
just, you should just stay here. And instead, I just went with the, okay, well, this would look like everybody else. This the next step, y'all. This is what we doing. And then I went down there
Yep.
and acted a fool. And my mother said, come here. You coming back this way, right? That's what I'm not about to do. And now I understand that as an adult, like with kids, like, let me tell you what I'm not paying for. Failure. That's not happening, right? Like you're not about to go anywhere and
Yep.
act up, right? But I think that
Yeah.
that internal like knowing of like this is not for me, I commend you for that. And if anybody is listening and you feel that like I learned that now, go with what your gut, your like that's your internal compass, right? To tell you this ain't for me. I don't care what everybody else is doing. Listen to that thing. If you like, and in the midst of it, just Lord, make it clear, make it plain, whatever it is you need to do. But
Mm,
I'm just like that. I
yes.
wanted to acknowledge that internalness of like, nah, we don't need to leave right now. This is not the time. And so, what did you feel when, and what you said earlier about her offering you, Ayanna offering you two different decisions, right? Comfort
Mm.
or outside of your comfort zone.
And that's basically what it was. It came down to, I had, when I made the decision in high school, I had chose my safety net. And my
Mm,
safety net was my comfort zone. I always knew that my parents, no matter what in life, like I had my, and so I had to choose this time around. Given the choice, one of my favorite quotes is like, your comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there.
yeah,
And I realized that I couldn't continue to stay in Boston. I couldn't continue to stay sheltered in my parents' home. Like, I wouldn't grow and really become the woman that I needed to be, the woman that I wanted to be,
yeah,
if I continued to stay this sheltered, like, because I would continue to depend on them in a way that I knew I wouldn't be able to if I moved to DC. So that was really what gave me the push to be like, no, you gotta go. And I
yeah.
know you know the reference, but because I was Trinidadian, I told myself that I was gonna move to Trinidad in DC, and I was like, and then I started looking up and I ended up moving to Anacostia anyway. I was right off of Good Hope Ave,
Well,
right after,
okay.
which wasn't. My husband always says I almost didn't date you because I wasn't going to spend the night over in
Hey,
Anacostia,
listen,
but you have worked in
we be
Congress.
knowing what spots be like. Who you know that live over there? Because you everybody can't just go in. You listen,
So
everybody
it
got
was a
those
risk.
places. Yeah, yeah, yes, you did, child. That's a huge risk. Okay, then. Well, praise the Lord, you made it out. Okay. And it
Yep.
didn't scare you. And when I say make it out, like it didn't scare you enough to be like, is this what people be talking about when they come to DC? Like, but yes.
No, I right now, if we don't live in PG County, when we move back to the DC, whenever God plans that for us, I'm living in Anacostia. He hates that, but I'm like, I want to live in Anacostia.
Yeah, you are right. Hey, listen, y'all, you got to find the sweet spots. You got to find the sweet spots. So yeah, no, I wanted to say when
Yes.
you were saying like that, like nothing grows in your comfort zone. That is part of this, even in this journey of slaying self doubt, is that your self doubt shows up in so many different areas and at different times of your life,
Mm-hmm.
and in like inaction is still action, right? So like you said it, like
Yep.
if you had chose home, the comfort, the like you would. There's multiple things I know you could list off that if I had stayed here, these things would not have happened.
Yep.
Now, other stuff could
Never,
have happened,
never.
right? We don't know what happened, but this like we can't live like that. But you made the choice. You came here, and you had your career here. So when it was time for you to leave, what did self doubt look like at that time for you to make that decision to go into full time entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So full-time entrepreneurship really looked like me trying to, well, there's a self-doubt piece to it that I had, that I took on after doing it, that
Mm,
I really want to focus on here. But it is the for me, I was like, at this point I was engaged. So he proposed to me already, so we were engaged, but the business was taking up all of the time and thing. And I was like, in order to be this is what I was telling myself, like, in order to be a wife, like, I have to be here to support him. And like, at the end of the day, we both work in politics. Like, he's working to get the business off the ground so eventually I can quit.
mm-hmm.
But like, what if I just quit now? Like, well, the biggest thing we're risking is like health insurance, and then like,
Right.
other than that, like, we'll figure it out. Like, we can make it work. And I think it was hard because it was transitioning from, you know us really having both two separate full-time, very high demanding jobs, and like figuring out time to make for each other, versus like, basically, our business became our baby. And like,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
it felt like we were engaged for 2 years, and a part of that was because like we were getting the business off the ground first, before we were like, we'll continue to save it for the wedding, but the business needs to grow. We need to get it walking
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
And so I think the self-doubt really came from, am I going to give up the career that I had solo to
Mm.
come in? And and support this, and like, will this be the right thing? Like, is this moving in the right direction? But where I am now today, I know that like I made the right decision.
Yeah.
But I think the self doubt for me really comes from the after effect. Is like once I got here, and it took me a really long time to realize this, but I was just starting to move up in higher junior levels
Mm.
when he started this business and we realized that it was time for me to quit. So I pretty much went from like mid junior suite to C suite overnight. I literally the day of my last day at Boston Public Schools, they threw me a going away party, and my husband, my fiance at the time, came to pick me up from that going away party, and then we drove 2 hours to the Massachusetts National Convention where we worked to get our current governor elected, and we supported. That was one of our first contract was our current governor in Massachusetts, and we got her elected, and that was literally in the same day. And I was like, I
Wow.
literally, like within hours, I went from mid junior suite to C suite, and it wasn't because I did anything, because my husband gave me the role, and
Wow.
it felt like to me that not only did I have extreme imposter syndrome about now being in a sweet seat level, I didn't. To me, I didn't earn it; it was given to me,
Mm.
and now I have to prove to this man who I'm trying to prove to him I'm going to be a good wife too. But now I have to prove to him I can be a good business owner and a good partner in business. And that was the level of weight that like has impounded and built. And like every time I make a mistake, I'm like, I'm showing him, oh, I'm not a good. And like those were the things and mentality that I was thinking.
When I tell you that I'm over here, like I can feel it as you're telling this story and as you're saying it, I'm like, I can imagine, first of all, as women, we are already it's I don't even know why. Like I promise you, that's probably one of the things I'm gonna ask the Lord when I get to heaven is like, why do we feel like we have to prove our worth, regardless of the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter what it is, whether it's in relationships, all types of relationships, friendships, work environments, we are always and it's not an actual thing, right? It's a feeling that we have to prove that we are worthy for this thing. And I mean, part of me thinks that it probably, as a believer, like I'm thinking it really probably has to do with our faith in some ways that like we
Yeah.
know that God willingly gives us grace and gives us mercy, and we still don't feel like we deserve it, which is the reason why we always
Yeah.
tend to get disconnected with him because it's like, I messed up tonight. He gonna
I
forgive me
don't
tomorrow?
deserve this
I
right
don't
now.
deserve
Yeah.
this thing,
Yeah.
right? And so I felt that in my like, and as even though we'll be celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year, I in this yay child, yes, double digits, okay. In this journey of being together, I've done the same thing. Like I left my job and it was off of something that God told me. Like slaying self-doubt was birthed from a prompting in my, like I could not explain it. It was one of those things where it's like I'm just
Mm-hmm.
doing what the Lord told me to do, right? Like this is the next step
Mm-hmm.
in phase
Yep.
in my life, and that's it. But once it happened, it was like, like, what did I just do?
Mm-hmm.
And how am I going to prove to him that you didn't hear what he told me? I don't know. I can't explain
Yep.
it to you. You don't know what
Yep.
is what like the calling that is on my life, but I have to do my best to show you that this is the direction that we're supposed to be going in, right?
That part just hit me because I also felt like this was Anthony's calling. He got the calling to
Ooh.
start the Davis system, not me.
Mm.
And so I was like, how do I attach it? Like I felt like I was attaching myself to his calling, his purpose. And like I'm like, I need to build my own purpose within this. But I have found my own purpose within our company. I have like, and I'm
Yes.
like, it may have been his vision, but at the end of the day, God gives you a man to lead your family, and it should be his vision. And he laid out the vision good enough that I was like, I will quit my job for
Yeah.
this. So like, if he didn't do that,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, that is no, and I
yeah,
think even I've shared this story multiple times on here, that even though God gave me the prompting when it got down to it, as being married, as you'll learn, like the Lord can tell you something, but if it ain't a group chat, the other person don't know, just like this, right? And so I could not make a move in my marriage that was going to
right.
affect my entire family without my husband's support. And so my prayer was, Lord, you're gonna have to tell Ryan like, I gotta go. There's literally nothing else I can do. We're having the same conversation over and over again. And he's like, no, 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 it's not the right time. We need to wait for this. And I'm just like, I'm telling you what the Lord, and he's like, unless Jesus come down himself and tell me. And I'm like, okay, I get it. And then like some months went by and he called me at work and was like, okay, how soon can we get you out? And I knew in that moment, I was like, that wasn't nothing but God. So I was just like, okay, so we trying to leave, and like, let me hurry up before he get a ring back, right? And
he changed his mind.
Right, before he changed his mind and be like, I ain't really get that feeling. And so we have this conversation often. And I always be like, Lord, you the one who told me to leave. And he'd be like, that is not what happened. I'm like, technically, that is what happened, right? Like, you called me at work. So I think that as you, like you said, like, they are called to be our husbands, and they are called to help us along this journey, even if though slaying self-doubt has nothing to do with him, it's all me. Like, I can't do it without him. And in your situation with your husband, like, God called him to do it, but there is space for you to do, and you wouldn't have left if you didn't know that there was a possibility. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it had nothing, completely nothing to do with you, like if it was, I don't know, something that wasn't even in your wheelhouse, I have it that you would have just stayed at Boston public schools,
to
right?
let him be, because at that point I was making the most money I ever made. Congress don't pay you nothing. That had nothing to do with the Congresswoman. I love her, but Congress don't pay you nothing.
Lord, thank y'all for y'all service, everybody.
House of Representatives. This is something I like to tell people all the time. The House of Representatives, specifically, not the Senate, but the federal House of Representatives, they only pay people once a month. Do you know how hard it was post-college to figure out how to manage my money in DC for a whole month? Oh, girl, I was struggling. Every month.
Do better, DC. Do better. Okay? See.
Better, yeah.
And people actually, you know what? That's a whole nother. See, we go down a whole nother, because I'm like, not want these jobs, but we need you. And there's that.
I did at the time.
We need you. So then there's that part, right? Like, it's all a setup. So, Errin, what have you learned about yourself during this journey that you didn't know before?
Not that I didn't know it, but it got reinforced for me. So when I was a child, like kindergarten, first grade, I remember my mom coming to take me out of school, and I had to go do this really long test, and that's we got McDonald's. But I didn't know what the heck the test was about. The test was an ADHD evaluation test, and I was evaluated for ADHD as a child. And the results came back that I did have it, but both of my parents being immigrants, both of my parents have learning disabilities as well, and they both have ADHD as well, but they did, well, undiagnosed. They've never gotten the testing, but the way that I have learned myself, and then I'm like,
I see.
I don't, they mainly for them, they didn't want me to be put in the special classes. And so they didn't, my parents did not get me an IEP. They saw the testing, they didn't really know what to do with it. They just knew they didn't want their child to be made fun of. And I really commend, it doesn't sound like I'm about to, but I really do commend my parents, because my parents actually worked 2 and 3 jobs, started their own construction company on the side in order to have extra money to pay for me to have a private tutor. I've always had a private tutor for majority of my, like, until high school, pretty much, where my high school was a college prep school, so tutoring was mandatory in my curriculum. Had a private tutor from like elementary school to middle school in different ways. And so I know my parents really tried in that way to give me the support that they knew they couldn't provide me themselves. But now as an adult and being a business owner, and I see, I feel like stimulants and like all that kind of stuff is all over TikTok and social media right now. And it's like seeing all these things come up, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny. That's how I think, or like, that's me. And I was like, maybe I should go get myself evaluated. And it was starting therapy again. In my first therapy session, I talked for like 20 minutes straight about why I thought I was in therapy. And the first question my new therapist asked me was, do you have ADHD? And I was like, I think I might. And he's like, let's start there. Like, let's start. And the fact that I'm talking to a therapist about what's mentally going on. And the first question he asked me is like, no, I think you need some help with the attention issue. It told me that there's so many underlying factors that I've just been
Mm.
because of this. So it's something that I'm also trying to learn the difference between my learning disability and my ADHD, because it is two separate things and it shows up very differently. Um, but yeah, I am my new thing is like being honest with myself, because although I kind of knew, I never really talked about it. I was afraid that like if jobs knew, I wouldn't get the job anymore. People wouldn't think I was smart enough to be in this job. And
Yeah.
then when I got in the roles, I would have severe imposter syndrome. I'm like, you're not smart enough to be in those roles. You don't know what you're doing. And but
Man,
I
the
was
way
like,
we be beating ourselves up, like, child.
truly, I think to myself how I've pretty much never applied for a job. Pretty much every single job I've gotten in my life has been given to me by
Yeah.
somebody who has mentored me or known me and been like, I'm hiring, I need help. Can you come like do this role? Can you, or I want you to come do this role? Or
Mhm.
I've pretty much all of my jobs have been given to me. Yet somehow I still think
Mm,
I'm not
mm,
worthy of
mm,
being in these
mm,
places. It's
mm,
just pretty
mm.
pretty crazy. Pretty crazy.
Well, no, because we just mentioned it earlier about this whole thing and us as women feeling worthy. And that resonated with me so much because that has been my story. Like my dad had his own business. My first job was with my dad, right? I think I did some, I worked at Sam's when I was like in my early 20s. That was a friend of mine who um suggested that I got the job, right? And I had this crazy part about this. So the whole entrepreneurship thing and my entrepreneurship journey, as everybody knows, started like literally 6 months before the pandemic. So
Yep.
it just went kind of like, what am I doing? And so in the midst of it,
Yeah.
when I had to like, when God was like, okay, like things are happening, well, we still want you to do this, but when reality and spirituality meet, and it's like, Lord, we got bills to pay, we got kids to send to school, we got like, I need, well, come on now, if you're not going to rain
Mhm.
on me, you need to send me somewhere, right? And I remember having this conversation with my therapist about having to get back into the workforce, and that was one of the things I was like, every job that I've had, it's been someone else, right? And so she was like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, they've either suggested me for the job or they've kind of just been like, hey, I got this, I need you here. And I just kind of went, right? And
Yeah.
the thing about it that made me, well, how she made me rethink it, because I was so nervous about like applying for jobs again. Like now I have to do this
Mhm.
on my own. There was that doubt came up of like, what do I do now? Like I don't have anybody who's helping me. Either way, that's the wasn't even the truth, because even this job that I had was the Lord sent it, and that was the end of that, right? But one of the things
Yeah.
that she said was like, even if people suggested you for a position, you have to do the work, right? And
Yeah.
so that should negate the thought process that you don't deserve it because you did the work, right? You're doing the work. You're in the, and they wouldn't have hired you, suggested you, recommended you for this position if they didn't see that you could do the work, and they knew like you would have had to already display the qualities that you were qualified, right? And so instead
Yeah.
of doubting ourselves and you know unqualifying ourselves or trying to it's almost like when someone gives you a compliment, right? And then we try to qualify the compliment, like, oh well, all
Yep.
I
Yep.
did was get something off of Google. Oh, this just from Amazon or whatever have you, instead of saying, thank you, I received that, right? And that's something that I've had
Yep.
to
Yep.
learn, like, okay, Lord, like this, all of these things would not have happened if it's not supposed to, right? Like these, and every job
Yeah.
I've had has furthered me in my career for me to be here, right? So I think, that would be my encouragement to you as you are navigating
Thank
this
you.
piece, that you would not be here if you were not meant to be here, right? And they, whatever you've been doing led you right to this space. So lean on your own track record, go back and think to yourself. Like when I think about it now, I'd be like, you know what? That person did give me that job. And the people who actually were on the hiring committee didn't think I could do it. And I outlasted each and every one of them. 11 years. serious. They
Period.
got fired. I'm like, so
They all
still
got
here.
fired.
Who's still here? I have
Yeah.
that doubtfulness in this situation. I have to remind myself, like, you are here to do whatever the work is that you're supposed to do for this season. Don't try to
Yeah.
qualify for the remainder of your life because the Lord may move you again, right? But whatever you're supposed to learn in this season, do that, and that's it. So that is my encouragement to you, in that space. But I wanted to go back to what you said about hey, therapy, because we are advocate of therapy on here, Jesus and therapy, y'all know.
Yes, there you go. That's
But
all you really need.
listen, and I always congratulate us, our generation, of like reparenting ourselves. Like, you commended your parents for doing what they needed to do to know they didn't want you in the special, which is dumb anyway. That's just the way they like classify people, but that doesn't mean
Yeah.
the same thing, right? But they knew well enough to know that you needed help, right? And so they gave you the help that you needed, which is able to further you on, right? And like get you to where you are. And then now being in the space of like between TikTok and Instagram, child, we can self-diagnose ourselves with all the things, right? Be like, you know what, that is me, right? And so like you were saying, like that forced you to, or prompted you rather, to go into therapy and figure out the things you needed to do for yourself. And I want you to talk about that because there's lots, for me personally, I've had a lot of different conversations with people who are saying like, I think I have adult ADHD. And for me, I'd be like, I don't even, what's the difference? Like, I don't even know. So I want to use this space as like an educational space to use this platform to talk to someone else who may be in the same situation that you are. Maybe they just finding out, maybe they need to know. Just talk a little bit about that because again, on here, we want to give people the resources to do the best, do what they can. And I'd be like, when you know better, you do better. So we want them to know.
Yes. So, well, first, I want to just talk about my therapy as a whole. This is like, I feel like unconventional, in a way, like kind of out of the norm of what people do therapy. So I think it's important for me to share this aspect. So, one, as a Black woman, this is my first time ever, but I am seeing a male therapist. It is a Black man.
Mm,
And I decided to see a Black man because my husband had never been to therapy before. I had been to therapy many times in different iterations of my life, but this was his first time. And we wanted to do marriage counseling with the same person. And so
mm,
I was like, we see this man 3 times a week, technically. Like, I have my own personal session, we have a marriage counseling session, and he also has his own session with him.
yeah.
Um, and being able to see the same person, being able to get a new perspective that I don't feel like I've ever gotten before,
Mm-hmm.
being able to, make my husband feel uplifted in therapy, where usually husbands don't feel like this is a safe space for them at
Yeah.
all. And in a space that I knew was already going to feel safe for me because I've done this work.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it has been transformative, and beautiful. And I truly encourage people to do it like this. Like, see the same person, don't see two separate people and then a third different person for your marriage counseling session, because my therapist now is able to know what I'm individually going through, know individually what's in my head, what's racking me in my heart, and is able
Yeah.
to talk to him in such a raw way. And Anthony is able to do the same thing. And then we come to counseling, he's holding us accountable to the
What?
rawness emotion, but expressing it in a way that he knows the other person is going to understand.
Yeah. Oh
You
man, that
honestly,
is,
the best
yeah.
money spent. It has been transformative.
Man, that you know what? You just giving me an idea because generally, what do? You say, "Oh, like if I'm already in therapy, let me find you somebody, right?" And then you say,
Hmm.
and then we
Hmm.
go find somebody else who's doing something else, and not even thinking about it when you say it like that. Like you're now getting three different perspectives, right? Because whoever I'm talking to, this person, maybe I feel like it's different. So. Okay, you gave me something to think about. Okay, yes, yes, thank
Yes,
you,
just a
thank
new
you for that.
perspective to add. Because when I was telling a lot of my friends, it was like, "Girl, you crazy! Don't do this. This is gonna." And I did not think that they was right, but I was like, I have to give this an
Yeah,
opportunity. And I think that it has been the best thing for my individual self and for my marriage. So
yeah.
really wanted to promote that. Um, when it comes to ADHD, I am still learning. Like, I have not even started my medication process yet. I'm like literally just finished my evaluations. Like, I'm it's real new for me.
Beginning. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
And so I I would say for others, it's really stop saying like I think that TikTok relates to me, and like go
Yeah.
find out if that
Yeah.
TikTok really relates to you. And I say that, and it took me like 2 years and some change. It wasn't until a therapist, suggested it that I was like, maybe I really do need to take this seriously. Maybe these TikTok things aren't just a joke. It's like real life. And so that would be my advice here is like, TikTok people are not experts, but like people are
Facts.
talking about real life experience and like what they're going through, and that can resonate with you. And if you constantly feel like these videos are showing up, the algorithm knows you too, right? So
Right.
like,
That part.
if you keep getting these videos
Right.
and you keep feeling like you relate to
Right,
them,
right, right. You might want to,
maybe.
yeah, maybe you might want to take the next step. Yes.
You know how I really knew? It was like people with ADHD, we ignore the black girl that comes up like, "Hey, have you been scrolling too long?" I see that girl like 10 times a day. I'm like, "Girl, get out of here."
Moving on.
And so,
Right.
yep. I'm like, that is my recommendation. And then doing, my the person who's doing my evaluation is a black woman. It's a woman who I feel like is able to, connect with me. And I can really, like, in this moment, I felt like I needed a black woman because they're asking so many personal questions about how you think, how you move.
Yeah.
And it feels like even more intense therapy in a way, the way that they're
Wow.
going through this evaluation and like
Yeah.
unearthing how you thought about your childhood, how it shows up now, and talking with me about like some of the symptoms of ADHD and how that shows up for adults, and then how it can show up in our workplace and our careers. And I'm
Mm,
honestly excited to get on medication to see how I like change within my work life balance, how like anxious I feel at the end of my
mm,
like there's a meme I reposted a while ago that said I need to learn how to tell my body that sending long emails should not trigger a flight or fight response. And I'm like,
mm.
that is, it shouldn't send me into the state of a frenzy it does just because
Yeah.
I have to write a long email or take me that long to write it. And I think like and I'm constantly having to write long emails. So I'm like looking forward to like when I start on medication, just evaluating things of that nature. But I'll
Yeah.
come back to you and let you
Yeah,
know how I feel.
yes, please. We have something called Slate Chats where we do follow-ups after this. I would love to have you on. One of the things, like a part of this platform of slaying self-doubt is that, like I said earlier, self-doubt shows up in so many different ways. It shows up in your marriage and your finances, at work, in your emotional health, your mental health. And there's so many things that are attached to that, right? It's not just,
Yeah.
oh, I'm doubting myself or I have imposter syndrome. It's something, there's a symptom that's causing that thing that is, and then there's an
Mhm.
action that happens with it. And so I feel like that, God's given me this space and this platform to share that with other, because there's other people who are watching these TikToks and they feel like this could be them and they do not take any action, right? And then they want things to be better. And I think a lot of times with our self-doubt, and again, I always say slang is an action that is one day at a time, one moment at a time, one event at a time. And so
Mhm.
even as you're going through we're going through these different things, this is the thing that you're choosing to slay, right? We're going to slay this ADHD, right? We're going to slay, this therapy, the marriage, the entrepreneurship, but it
Mhm.
shows up differently in multiple different ways. So, yeah, I would love to have you back on to discuss it so that we can see, like, what do you feel about it, and how it's changed you, right, for the better. And so yeah, you're always welcome back here. um
Yes, love it.
so let's talk about all things the Davis system. Like,
Mm.
what is it that you all do now that I know, like, you're local to our area, or is it just like, is it global? Like, what tell me all the things. What is it? What do y'all do? And yeah, what is it and what do y'all do?
Yeah, so the Davis System LLC, we consider ourselves to be, oh, well, first of all, we help find the organizer in you.
Oh,
Is it
okay.
on this side or is it on this side?
It's on that side. Yeah, that's right,
So,
girl.
yeah. um, we consider ourselves to be a social impact firm. When we first started, it was more about like political consultants and like knowing that there weren't enough young Black people in these spaces, and that these older white men, more often or not, were getting paid the large bucks to come consult on campaigns for
Mm-hmm.
even people of color, because there's not that many consultants of color. And then
Facts.
they would come in and like try to tell you how to organize in the hood, and they'd have no idea how to
Right.
organize our people. And Anthony and I have had experience beyond the hood too, so we can organize the hood. We can organize really well, but we can
Yeah.
also organize beyond that. And I think it was about knowing that we needed more of us in these spaces. And so that's really where it birthed out of. It to For us, we help connect our clients to community, and
Mm-hmm.
community to the resources that our clients have, and at the same time providing capacity for different organizations to grow. So like they will hire us on to build out a full program, but also market that program to the right people in community to get the participants in it that they want. And we're here building out that capacity, building out a marketing plan, reaching out to people, like, like putting on meetings on their behalf, hosting the community event. We do it all. Like once you hire us, like
Wow.
we will build out. So we've had many clients from Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. We were hired to collect her signatures to get her on the ballot, and we got her certified last week. So the fact that
Yay.
she is on the ballot is due to the work of my organization. But
Yes.
like and then we work with other organizations. One of the national NAACP had their convention in Boston last year, and we were fortunate enough to host multiple events for them. We got to host the NAACP's college fair that they host. We had over 600 college students, over 35 New England, organizations and universities and colleges there to sponsor. It was amazing. And we also hosted like a statewide day of service with the NAACP. Our clients
Nice.
range from political clients to clients who have a political focus, I would say, but
Mm-hmm.
we're really here um, about community and having an impact in community in whichever way we can. So technically, we are based in Boston,
Okay.
but because his family is here in PG County, and we fly back and forth a lot. So that's why I'm in Tacoma Park
Okay.
right now,
Okay.
but we're technically still
Yeah,
based
I
in
went through that.
Boston.
Look, I didn't scroll all the way down, right? And so when I get to the bottom of the website, it says, "Oh no, it says Boston based," but it's because but it's serving nationwide. So hey,
It
yo,
is. It
yeah.
is. Yes, we do.
And so, I being as though, so how do you get like people who are interested in like our age group, right? Getting them connected, right? If they're not running for office or trying to do something. Because one of the things I always think of, I tell my kids often, I say, "Child, I don't know who gonna be in charge when y'all get old, because the way y'all be thinking right now is wild to me. And I just don't know who is the next, you know what I mean? Like, how do we,
Yeah.
and maybe it's a twofold question, because I think the other part is that how do we even get, um, how do we get our community involved in a way that's not like just with the conspiracy theories or the rhetoric or the, all the big stuff, like the things that's just like, oh, let me get your attention, let me get your attention, but really involved in what's happening in your area and what's happening in your communities. It's even the fact that I'm still having conversations with adults now about voting in the primaries, right? And it's like, y'all do
And
know
like y'all just had one in Maryland.
like I do know that's where change happens, right? By the time the general election comes, it's too late. The people have already been picked, right? You have to do this.
Hmm.
There's lots of us who, and honestly, I'm not even going to front. I didn't learn that till like a couple of years ago, right? And I'm in my 40s. Like
Hmm.
it wasn't. I don't know. It may have been explained, but maybe it just when it's not your thing, you just kind of like, it's like football.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I know enough to get by, but if you ask me what position people play, I don't know, child. I know the object of the game, and that's it, right?
What's the three branches of government? I'm testing you now.
Oh gosh, executive, judicial, and oh my gosh, what is the legislative? Right? Is that it?
Look at you,
On,
100.
come on. Because see, we were getting those commercials back in the day. The little man was going up the Congress steps. Are you old enough to?
I'm a bill on
Yes,
Capitol
I'm
Hill.
a
That's
bill
what you
on
tell you.
Capitol Hill.
Schoolhouse
Okay,
Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock. See, those are the things that I can imagine those things. But knowing those, like remembering, like that stuff doesn't come on TV, right? Like those are the things that our
Yeah,
kids are not. Whatever they're watching on YouTube is not telling them,
and not teaching them
the
that.
It's not teaching them.
Yeah.
So how do we get them involved, younger and our, our generation, like this 80s, 90s baby generation?
So I'll say twofold because I do like it's a personal level for me and then a business level. So
Hmm.
personally, as I stated before, I've never really gotten any job without the network that I had. So for me, mentorship is huge.
Okay.
I mentor a lot of people. I take my mentorship very seriously. I call them my copying the Congresswoman. She calls her staff the A team. And so I copied and I call all of my mentees my E team. And like the my E team and beyond for people who like, I meet and comes into my team, they pretty much all work for the Davis system in like
Hmm.
part-time per diem capacity. Like I'm like, oh, I have this event, I need extra support. They're the people that have done trainings by me or Anthony. They have like completed programs, they worked for us in the past, like on different levels and things like that. And like I am continuing to support their careers and wanting, like, as my brand grows, they're growing, they continue to have like
Hmm.
things on the side that they're doing. And so in one way, that's how I like to get people involved. Email me, reach out to me, let's get to know each other. I'm always here to write a recommendation, resumes, help people do, like, I literally set up Zoom meetings with my students, because we also teach a class at my alma mater on how to run for office. So like the students
Nice.
there, and like,
Yeah.
and we're trying to duplicate that class, actually open to the public. Where we're going to announce it later on in the fall, but we do trainings and workshops all the time, and we're trying to make those trainings and workshops more free and open to the public. Because on the business level, the way that we try to do this, and I would encourage everyone to follow us on social media, whether that be LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, at the Davis System LLC, we are posting content that is about knowledge-based things. So
Mm.
not forcing the rhetoric behind you, not saying like this is the news highlight today and what's happening in DC or
Yeah.
what's the hot, sexy topic. We're actually posting like, this is what it means when you're like, this is how to request a mail-in ballot. This is how the process to go and why you would need it. This is what it means to, like, work on your local ward committee. This is why we need poll election volunteers, and
Yeah.
like, like explaining the difference between the levels of government and who represents you on what level and what their responsibilities are. Like, we're literally just trying to educate and knowledge base our
Yeah.
community. Um, we have a job list serve, like literally, we're connected to so many different campaigns that those campaigns are reaching out, like, do you know people, knowing that we're still on college campuses too. And like, we have a mass of political jobs we send out, we recommend people all the time. And I would say just sign up for our newsletter, check out some of our we have our own we call it the impact series, where we
Okay.
talk about people making impact in their communities. And we have people on about once a month. Yesterday we had two prior convicted women felons on the show that have now started organizations. One was actually exonerated from Trump and Kim Kardashian. She was on our show
Oh yeah,
yesterday.
yeah, I know.
uh,
Okay. And
her
when
name's
she was
Alice
going over that
Johnson.
work. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So she was on our show yesterday, and like, we are trying to bring those people in and like spread the community and like knowledge of like what's going on. And if you're familiar with Alice, she was pretty much like the face of the First Step Act, and we're
Yep.
talking about what that meant, how that impacted our community. Like, it's just education is really
Yeah.
what we're trying to do.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I love that because I think that it's so much information, like getting to the basics of some of the stuff, like how do you get a mail, like those are some things that people, like I said, people my age, I'm a little bit older than you, that is still they don't know, right? Like, and they don't think it's
Yeah.
important, but yet and still like these things impact you wherever you are, right? And as much as I love PG County, right, there's still some stuff that I'm just like, I really need to know, like, do Royal Farms have like some stock in PG County? Because if I see another Royal Farms, I need to my congressperson because what is happening? Like, can we get something else? Can I get a Wawa? Okay. But I'm just like popping up everywhere. Anyway, but those like getting involved or at least just having the information, I feel like is so important because we are the future, right? And so, like you said, we are looking at what Congress looks like or what politics look like, and we have what two almost 80 or 80-year-old men running for president, and we are literally talking about people's cognitive abilities, and there's no other choice, right? Like it's like,
Mhm.
well, what like this is what we have, and so it's like, okay, what do we need to do to start paying attention and get involved? So I'm going to make sure all this information is in the show notes. But before I say that, I'm going to say, first of all, congratulations. You just got married. Okay. This is
Yeah, we just hit 1 year anniversary like 2 weeks ago. May 5th was my 1 year wedding
okay.
anniversary.
Yeah. So I saw five. So I'm on your Instagram page at the same time that we doing this. Okay. So I saw 5-5. I thought it was okay. Well, congratulations, 1 year anniversary. Yay. So that's number
Thank
one. And
you.
number two, D-Tar did your photos for your wedding. And he did mine too. When I saw it, I was like, I know this eye. That's it. Immediately
Well,
what I thought.
actually, can I give you a
Yes.
quick story?
Yeah, sure.
So my husband was in his mama's belly when his parents got married. So he and D Todd actually was just started out doing photography at the time and got connected to my husband's parents unbeknownst through a friend and actually took their wedding photos. And it wasn't until D Todd walked into my husband's groom's suite the morning of and was like, "Hello, everybody." And my father-in-law turned around and was like, "Oh my God, D Todd." And it's the same man. So he took the photos on my parent-in-law's wedding day and on mine too. So it's really special for us that he
That
and he has
is
to take my baby photos because of the same reason.
that is so dope. Look at that. See, we are more connected than I thought. When I look,
Yes.
wait a minute, I think I know. I'm just like, and then I looked, I said, oh, Disa, he is the bomb with this.
See, so now I have to come back to talk about my ADHD follow up. I got to come back to talk about my self doubt around being a mom now, since there's so many pressure with now that I'm married and
Child.
already. And I got to talk about my self doubt with making mistakes in front of my team when I'm only a few years older than that.
It, let's,
That's my three topics
That's
for
it.
next time.
We got three different times and we can have a conversation because I can tell you all about that too, girl. That is just But in the meantime, y'all, because we don't be trying to take up your whole time while you're listening. So can you tell people how can they connect with you? You mentioned the your LinkedIn page and your Instagram. So you just repeat those really quickly. Y'all know it's going to be in the show notes, but I want her to say it just in case you listening and not texting and driving, but you sitting on your couch listening, and you can go look it up right now.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you again for having me on here. I really do appreciate this. Has been a self healing podcast for me too, and as I'm growing in this journey, I can't wait to come back so I could really talk about it. Maybe give some advice around the
Yes.
ADHD as an adult that comes a little bit from a more experience that doesn't feel TikToky. But yeah, you all can follow my business on the Davis System LLC, and that's on all platforms: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And then you can follow me personally at Lady with Ambition _
Yes, y'all. Yeah, like I said, it's going to all be in the show notes. Erin, thank you so much. I want to thank you for your vulnerability, for your transparency. I really appreciate it. And our kindred spirits, this whole and we're gonna
Yes.
make sure that once you're in Prince George's County, for real, okay, y'all, best county in the world. That we connect,
Yes.
okay? Because I try to make sure the girlies in the Peach County girlies stay connected, okay? So thank you so much
Yes.
for joining us today. Y'all, remember to share this episode, get connected with Errin and the Davis system. Until next time, see ya.
Thank you.
As always, y'all, thank you for rocking with me. Again, if you enjoyed this podcast and you find it valuable, you enjoy this channel and you find it valuable, please consider donating by buying me a coffee. Your support will help me to create new content, get an official podcast studio, and ultimately reach more people. That's what we need. We need more people on this movement. Okay. If you're not already signed up to the newsletter, go to my website, www.slayingselfdoubt.com, and sign up for the Slayer Nation newsletter. That's where you'll get updates, where you'll get what's going on. You'll get the news first. You don't have to wait until I announce it or hear. Okay. And lastly, second to last, please make sure that you share this with at least 10 people. We are trying to reach 100,000 downloads this year, and every subscription, every share counts. So we need it. We need you to send it out to your peoples so they can help us hit our goal this year. Lastly, if you are not already following me on Instagram, you need to go on over there and follow me at Slaying Self Doubt. Until the next episode, see ya.